Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and it has been a busy couple of weeks, so we have a lot to get you all updated on. And we're starting our liming and fertilizer program, so we're going to get 25 tons of lime delivered, and we're also getting a slab poured for the pond cabin that will be coming later on in the week. But before we get into all of that, let's get a quick update on all of the fish. So we'll see the fish come up here and start eating here in just a second, and I've noticed a lot of them hanging out around the oak throne whenever they're not eating, so it's not taking them nearly as long to get the food nowadays. But I've got this one going off twice a day at 9 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, and then I have that smaller version starter pellet going off one time a day at noon in that feeder. So you can definitely tell they're getting bigger and longer. Most of the ones you're seeing right here at the surface are those fathead minnows, and you'll kind of see the bluegills, they'll dart up to the surface and then go right back down deep. But we should be getting a truckload of threadfin shad here in the next couple of weeks, and then the bass will come later in May. I love coming out here and watching these guys during feeding time, but I'm not the only one that likes watching them. They've definitely brought some extra predators into the pond. Alright, the lime truck is finally here, and he is going to be dumping 25 tons of this lime right beside the pond. I call it just basic agricultural lime, but some people call it dolomite lime. It's basically the same thing all the farmers use. I don't know why, but I enjoy watching these trucks unload, and I've seen a lot of them here lately. Alright, now I'm not an expert, but I'm going to do my best to explain why we need to add lime to the pond. So it's just like what farmers do with their crops. They'll add lime to the soil, and what that does is it raises the pH and helps with the acidity of the soil, but most importantly, it allows the fertilizer to do its job and create that real fertile soil that you need for plant growth. And so you have the exact same case with water. So when we add this in, it's going to raise that pH and make the water more stable. And then when we start our fertilizer program, it adds nutrients in the water for the fish like the bluegills, which then in turn help the bass. So we got 25 tons of this delivered, and they recommend about 5 tons an acre. But I am going to take a little bit of this off and go spread it over Liz's garden and go put it over the corn that we just planted. And then those pond biologists are going to come in with what looks like a pontoon boat with no sides on. And then they have a pump on the boat that they'll pump water out of the pond and help spray it. And I'm also spreading some right along the pond's edge where we have that clay blanket. And it'll help that grass grow in that area. And even if it rains and washes it down into the pond, that's where it was also intended to go. So no issues with that. Alright, now we got the concrete guys coming in to pour the slab. We're building on a little bit of a slope, so they're bringing in some extra sandy clay to help level everything off. And if you watched the last video, you saw we had a couple of Canadian geese fly into the pond, and it looks like they picked up an extra one. We got some spectators out here trying to see what's being built, and they're not the only nosy ones. You know that Al Capone has to fly in and inspect what kind of structure we're putting up, and he's probably going to make it a new perch. So the guys have been out here this morning getting the pad ready. Probably going to pour concrete this afternoon and then let it cure for 14 to 20 days. Man, I thought after 850 loads of clay, I'd never have to see another one, but luckily this one's only 2 loads of clay. And happy to say our pond cabin is finally complete. We had this built by Alabama Custom Cabins. They did a great job. I'd highly recommend them. But we're going to do a full cabin tour video here in the next few weeks, and you guys want to make sure to watch that one because we're going to be giving away a trip for 2 people to come down and stay in this cabin at the Crimson Oak Pond. So make sure to watch that video, and we're going to try to have several other giveaways in the future so some of our subscribers can come out and stay on the farm. So the guys are pouring the concrete slab today, and even though the cabin's built, we still have to wait anywhere from 10 to 24 days for this slab to cure. So just a little bit of a waiting process, but the slab looks good. Now we just need it to dry out. Now we're going to do a quick little quiz. Which of these 3 ducks do you think are a decoy and which do you think are real? If you said the two on the left are real ducks, you are correct, but I am not a duck expert and I'm not 100% sure what type of duck, so maybe some of you guys can leave a comment down below. It looks like they're a little bit smaller and maybe their colors hadn't fully developed yet. But the reason I noticed they were in the pond is because I saw the hawk flying over and he kept diving down in this one area, and you can see the hawk sitting on the bank back behind him. I've always heard that hawks will attack ducks, and it definitely looked like he was trying, but the ducks didn't seem to be too scared. They didn't fly away. And I feel pretty sure they think this decoy is a real duck because they're hanging out around it. But that may just also be because they're young. But I sat here and watched the hawk as he watched the ducks, and it lasted for about 30 minutes. And then he finally gave up and flew away. And the ducks actually went and sat in the exact same spot the hawk was in, and took a little nap. And take a look how much better and greener Alcatraz Island is. So last week we went in and added some lawn soil which had fertilizer in it and some Bermuda grass seed. We also set up a sprinkler system, and you can tell it definitely helped. Finally got some nice green grass on the island. But you can also see this water has a little bit dirtier tint to it. We've gotten a lot of rain this week. It's been that bright green tint, and now it's starting to darken up and look a little bit more like pond water. But we're going to be discussing some of the water quality issues, and one of the tools a lot of pond owners use to test their water is called a Secchi disc. You can either buy these at stores or make them yourself. They're not that complicated, so I just decided to make one really quick. And you basically just paint a dish white and black to give it that contrast. So as you're lowering it down into the water, once that white disappears, you know that's how far your visibility is. We're going to go ahead and get ours painted up, glued together, then we'll test the water. And that's a quick homemade Secchi dish. Now we are going to glue the yardstick to it and let it dry, then we'll be able to test the water. So typically in ponds, when you're taking your water clarity readings, you want that disc to disappear somewhere around 16 to 18 inches. And if you still have good visibility past 18 inches, that's when you know you need to fertilize the pond water. And when you add that fertilizer, it creates a phytoplankton, and it does a couple things. All of the small bait fish and fingerlings will eat it, and then that cloudy water also helps prevent algae from growing. This is a really useful tool that lets you know if you need to fertilize or not. Alright, so one of our subscribers named Ross reached out to us and said he had a good mouse trap idea. And I actually watched some videos on the internet of this pretty cool trap. So basically what happens is you build a ramp up to a 5-gallon bucket. And when the mouse steps out right here, he's safe. That doesn't go down. But you put some peanut butter in here. That's the trap part. And then as soon as he steps in there, it flips down and he slides down into the bucket and has no way of getting out. So we're going to put a couple of them out. We're also going to put some game cameras up and see if the mouse trap works. Got some extra crunchy peanut butter. Just rubbing it in here on the inside like that. Flip the lid over. And so when they come in, they're going to be trying to get to that. But that's when the lid's going to flip down. Alright, we have our first mouse coming up, but he hadn't quite figured out the ramp yet. And next up, we have a possum coming around. He's saying, that's suspicious. I'm out of here. And we got a little young buck coming up to it. I've always heard they like peanut butter. And the mouse is getting a little closer to the ramp. So not too much luck on the first night, but we'll keep monitoring it and testing the trap out. And it looks like we got a new visitor. He's one of the first turtles to show up to the pond. And now it's time for an update on the two pet ducks, Allie and Bam Bam. So spring's in the air, and Allie has been busy laying eggs. So we were kind of on the fence about keeping them or not. But Sarah insisted that we keep some, so we're going to bring one to the incubator. Alright, we're going to transport one of the eggs back to an incubator. Alright folks, so we brought a duck egg home, and I'm pretty new to this. I've never done an incubator before, but we got an incubator, got everything set up, got the temperature right, humidity right on 54%. And this incubator is pretty cool because it'll actually rotate the eggs around as well as keep the humidity just right. So we are about to put it in, and it's going to take 28 days. Alright, so one of the cool things about this is it'll automatically turn the egg. You push both of these buttons at the top just to test it. And look at there. That spins the egg. Alright, we got a nice spring day out here and we're planting some corn for the deer. I'm going to show you how to do it. I got my rows set out. We just use this little corn planter. It's a pretty neat deal. And you get these plates, and this one's for sweet corn. So it measures out the distance in between each seed. And you can see that little cup will pick up one piece of corn, drop it off in that slot, and then this part of it acts as a trench. So it digs about a 1.5 to 2 inch trench through the hill and then drops a piece of corn every few inches. All right, now we're out here at Liz's garden. I'm going to be planting the corn a little bit differently. I'll show you really quick how we do it. So for this, I just took a rake handle and poked holes about every 8 inches. And then I'm just coming back through, dropping a piece of corn in each hole, and then I'll cover it up. That way I got the exact spacing I need. That wheel does a pretty good job, but this is the only way to make sure it's 100% right. And you know Liz is gonna want it perfect. So we're gonna do about 4 or 5 rows of corn here. Should be plenty. So I put out this game camera to monitor the animals that came through Liz's garden. And for some reason, Al Capone thinks that everything we put out is a new perch for him. That poor little antenna having to support that weight, man. So shout out to Spartan Cameras, because we are doing some high quality product testing out here every night. But both of the owls, Hooter and Al Capone, are loving all of the construction going on around here. I'm guessing anytime we disturb the dirt, that brings the mice to that area and then they can eat more. Looks like one of them just flew down and got a mouse. Not sure if they're interested in sharing though. And my poor young cypress trees better grow quick to be able to support their weight every day. So the deer are still showing up every day, and something really interesting that I've noticed is they have not dropped their antlers yet. So in almost every other part of the country, they've already dropped them, but here we are almost in April, and all of our bucks, even the bigger bucks and smaller bucks, still have them. So I'll definitely be watching that over the next few weeks, because if you'll notice those tree covers that I put on the new trees I planted, I'm waiting until they drop the antlers before I remove them. There's a good shot of the deer in the background and the geese swimming by, and I asked you all in the last video to help me name the 2 new geese, and one of the comments from Paul said you should name the geese Johnny and June. So shout out to some legends. We're going to name the geese Johnny and June. So send me your address, Paul, and I'll get your prize package shipped out. So here's a good look at the reason why I'm planting all the corn and beans that we are out here, because we have a herd of deer that come through. I feel like if I can feed them enough down here in this area, they'll stay away from the gardens and the vegetables that we're growing for ourselves. But if you sprinkle a little bit of apple corn out, they will come from miles around. And here's a nighttime shot of Johnny and June. I wasn't sure if they'd swim around or nest at night, but looks like they still explore. So it's been a long time since I've updated you on the backyard pond, and a lot of you new subscribers may not have even seen it. But our 2 pet bass in here named Bonnie and Clyde are the reason we built this 5-acre pond. We're going to move Bonnie and Clyde into the 5-acre pond, and then our bass we call Moby that lives in the 300-gallon aquarium is going to move into the backyard pond. At least that's the plan in the beginning. Alright folks, it's feeding time. I'm going to walk you through our weekly process on how we feed all of our pets. And since we don't really have a good source for shad around where I live, the best thing for us is just to get them overnighted in from Anderson's fish farm. And what they sent us this time was 1,000 golden shiners. And I'll try to let you see what size they are. And you can see in that sack, they're all lively. Maybe 1 or 2 out of 1,000 didn't make it. They have a really good success rate as long as the weather isn't too warm. But you basically just let them acclimate in there, and then we're going to get a little feeding action in here. Clyde getting ready for dinner time, but this is basically what we do every week to 2 weeks, depending on what time it is in the year. Spring and summer is when they eat the most. So we've had a ton of rain lately, and that mixed with all the pollen has the water dirtied up. But some of you may be thinking, how can those fish eat 1,000 shiners every week to 2 weeks? And largemouth bass are interesting. They have to eat 10 pounds of fish just to gain a pound themselves. And I'm not exactly sure how much each of these little shiners weigh, but it can't be much at all. There's other shiners that are left in the pond from the last batch, and they won't chase those down because sometimes they're burning more energy to catch that shiner. So that's why they always wait on that easy opportunity. Release the rest of them. Now here's the fun part. Whenever we put all the rest of the shiners in, that's when everybody comes out to eat and the pond becomes alive. You can see one of the small Ninja Turtles snacking. So we wanted to finish a lot of the projects that we had going, like spreading out the lime, but we have had a ton of rain lately, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because we were in kind of a drought. But that's one of the only things I don't like about this pond location. It's feast or famine. Either you're getting a ton of rain or none at all. And when it rains, it pours here. And we even had a tornado come through the other night. So I went back to check the cameras because the tornado was only a mile or two away from the farm, but unfortunately it was raining so hard, no footage of that. And now it's time to feed Mr. Moby. So we had a full moon come through the other night, and I couldn't help myself. I had to do the night lapse. My angle was just a little bit off, but we still caught a pretty good picture of the nighttime sky. And then a nice crisp sunrise that next morning. But that is going to wrap up this video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We got so many projects coming up. Stocking more fish in the pond, the cabin delivery, and several other really cool projects. But I hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.